Okay, I'm going to get started this morning by just welcoming all of you guys. Sawadee Kap, Sawadee Kap. Welcome to Wat Tung Yu. Nice to see all of you guys here this morning. Welcome to those of you that are here. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. Today is our group learning program where I start with meditation and guiding you guys in some meditation. And then afterwards, I just open up to any and all questions that you guys have. This program is on Sundays and Wednesdays. And on Sundays, I go chapter by chapter in a book that we have as helping you to develop a foundation in the teachings of the Buddha. And that's a 7-month program where each Sunday we're going chapter by chapter. This past Sunday, we just finished chapter 8, and now we're going to be moving into chapter 9 this particular Sunday. But then on Wednesdays, what I do is just meditation and open up to any and all questions. We do the same thing on Sundays as well, where we meditate and I open up to questions, but there's usually a particular topic that I teach about. So after we do meditation, I'll kind of give you guys a little taste of the teachings of the Buddha for those of you guys that haven't really studied them before, or maybe you haven't studied them in the way that I share them. So I'll share those with you after meditation, and then we can open up to any and all questions that you guys might have related to the teachings of the Buddha. So if you'd like to join for meditation, the way that I do this is I start with chanting. The chants that I do are on a laminated sheet over there on the table. If you'd like to see the chants, they're in a Pali language. This is the original language of the teachings of the Buddha, that if you read his original teachings, they're in the Pali language. So we chant in the Pali language. And the chanting, it isn't a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony or worship. It's not prayer or anything like this. During the lifetime of the Buddha, they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to the memory, because the technology to write things down didn't exist in that region of the world. So they needed to recite them every 2 weeks as a way to commit them to their memory. So that's how chanting actually got started. And nowadays, we don't need to chant in order to remember the teachings. We have books and audiobooks and podcasts and videos and things like this as a way to learn the teachings and preserve them. But during the lifetime of the Buddha, they didn't have those things. The technology didn't exist yet in that region of the world. So they used chanting as a way to commit them to memory. So there isn't anything mystical or magical about these chants. Today, I chant as a way to get more benefit out of the meditation itself. You'll see that it'll help you develop awareness of the mind, concentration, awareness of the breath. So essentially that when you enter into meditation, you're actually getting more benefit out of the meditation itself. So if you'd like to see the chants, or if you'd like to chant along, you're welcome to get that at any point. If you do get it, you'll see the English translations as well. The English translations, you'll see a lot of respect and admiration and gratitude for the Buddha in these chants. And for that reason, I suspect that the Buddha didn't even create these chants himself. It was probably his students, either during his life or after his death, that they created these chants, because a Buddha doesn't walk around with arrogance and ego and say, here, students, chant these things to me in order to admire me and respect me. But if you learned from a teacher who helped you move from anger, sadness, frustration, and all these other discontent feelings like loneliness and boredom and guilt and shame and fear and jealousy and shyness and resentment, and help you to move to this enlightened mental state where your mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy, you probably have a lot of respect and admiration for that teacher too, because the Buddha didn't want anything from his students. He was just sharing with them what it is that it took him to be able to get to that enlightened mental state. He was sharing that with his students, and when the students were learning his teachings, when they were reflecting on them to independently verify them and practice them, they would be experiencing those same mental qualities of the peace, the calmness, the serenity, and the contentedness with joy, which is a permanent mental state that you can attain in this life. And we'll talk a little bit more about it after the meditation. So after we do the chanting, we'll go into the meditation, and I'll provide you some guidance during the meditation where you'll hear me kind of talking a little bit as we're meditating. I'll be providing you guidance of how to meditate, but then there'll be a period of time where it'll just be quiet, and we'll just all be meditating together here at the temple. And then those of you online, we can just be meditating together. And then after that period, we'll come out of that with some more chanting as well. In terms of body positionings, I'll provide you a little bit of guidance on that, either sitting on the floor or sitting in a chair. This is common for people to learn meditation and start practicing in the seated position, but there are other positions as well. There's seated, lying, standing, and walking positions. But seated is a common one that people will tend to practice when they're first getting started. If you're on the floor, you might put a cushion or so, as many as you like, under your rear. This helps to relax the body, and some people even like to put their legs off the mat, which helps to get their hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. You'd like your legs to just be lightly crossed, whereas if they're real tight, it usually impedes the circulation and it makes it more challenging for you to meditate because you'll have pain in the lower body, and you're not interested in experiencing pain during the meditation. So if you notice any physical pain in the body, just adjust the body positioning so that you can get to a comfortable position. It's not about everybody sitting in exactly the same pose. It's about you finding what's comfortable for you. So if it's sitting on the floor or sitting in a chair or lying down or standing, there's all these different positions because your body can't be in just one position all the time. So with your lower body relaxed and comfortable, you'd also like your hands to be the same way. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. So if this is comfortable for you, you could use that. But again, it's not about everybody doing it exactly the same way. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees or their palms up. Some people put their palms in their lap and just rest them comfortably. So you find whatever is comfortable for you. And the same thing for anybody who might be sitting on a sofa or a bench or a chair or anything like this is sometimes people like to put their feet flat on the floor or cross at the ankles, but you could even sit cross-legged the way I'm sitting here in this particular chair. And then the hands and arms wherever they're comfortable. The upper body should be erect. This keeps the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind would be overactive and uptight perhaps. So you'd like the upper body to be erect, where the sternum is up and the shoulders are back. This helps you to keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation, but it also helps you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose so you can fully expand the lungs. So again, I'm going to ease us into meditation with some chanting, and then I'll come back in with some guidance from that point forward. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Putang Mahakavanhang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Arhasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakeva Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vichacharanang Sammuno Sakato Rokavito Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then when you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมะเขวาพุทธังมะเขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมะเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมะเขวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนับโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะเขวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมพุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตาวะมนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, I'll just welcome all of you guys, those of you here at the temple and everyone online, those of you guys that joined us since we started meditating. Welcome to all of you guys. Welcome to Wat Tung Yu. Today is our group learning program, as I was mentioning at the beginning of class, and typically on Sundays what I do is I go chapter by chapter in a book that we use for this program. The book is over there on the bookshelf, the very first one, volume 1. It's titled Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. It's a 7-month program where each Sunday I'm going chapter by chapter by chapter and helping you to understand the teachings of the Buddha and developing a foundation in his teachings. And by doing so, you'll be able to learn how to move your mind to this enlightened mental state, where the mind's peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you no longer experience any discontent feelings. All the anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, all of this is eliminated from the mind. You don't even have the slightest displeasure by the time you get to enlightenment. Your mind is focused, concentrated, you have clarity of mind, deep memory. Your personal and professional relationships will blossom. They'll be at ease. You won't be arguing. You won't be bitter and hostile and harsh in your relationships. And none of this will be experienced by you either. Like right now, you probably have relationships where you're bitter, harsh, and hostile. So therefore, those people are that way with you as well. So you can train your mind to get to a point where you don't even have a bad mood anymore because you uproot the causes and conditions that are producing that. So I'm going to help you to understand this and help you to understand it just a bit by giving you a taste of the teachings of the Buddha. But before before I do so, I'd like to just share a few things with you for those of you guys that this is your first time here. In the back of the room, the very last door on the right, there's a bathroom. You're welcome to use it at any time. Feel free to get up and use that. Outside the classroom, if you go outside, you'll see signs that'll take you around to the main temple bathroom, and you can use those as well. We even have water and snacks here that is provided by our students, so you can feel comfortable to help yourself and come and go and ask any questions that you like as we go. Because on Wednesdays, what I do is I typically just give you guys a little taste of the teachings of the Buddha and then open up to any and all questions that you have. Because on Sundays is where I present a certain topic based on the program that we have and the book that we have. But on Wednesdays, it's just kind of open for you guys to ask any and all questions that you like. So sharing a bit with you about this meditation that we just did. This meditation is called Breathing Mindfulness Meditation. This is to help you develop mindfulness or awareness of mind and to develop concentration. These are qualities that you need in the mind in order to move the mind to enlightenment. There's other qualities that you need to cultivate, but these are two of the qualities that you need to cultivate in order to make your way to enlightenment. What mindfulness is awareness of mind. You're going to need this in making your way to enlightenment, because the path to enlightenment is to purify your mind of the pollutions that are causing it to experience anger and sadness and frustration and these other discontent feelings. So you wouldn't be able to purify your mind and train your mind if you didn't have awareness of what's going on in your mind. So the mindfulness is awareness of mind. So when you're focused on the breath, you're developing awareness of what's going on in your mind. You may not even be aware of the various feelings and the various thoughts and ideas that are going through your mind at any given time. So with meditation, it's helping you to develop this awareness of mind. It's also helping you to develop concentration, where you can have focus and clarity, so that way in your day-to-day life, you can have this focus and clarity to perform any particular task that you might be performing during your day-to-day life, whether it's business or personal relationships. You can have singleness of mind and focus on a single object, where right now you might find it challenging to have that focus and clarity during your day-to-day life. And then what you're also doing is you're training your mind to let go. To let go. When your mind is moving off your breath, the mind might be holding on to a certain thought. You might have had a bombardment of thoughts during your meditation, or you might have indulged in a thought for a period of time before you realize, like, oh yeah, I'm meditating. Let me bring my mind back to the breath. So if maybe 20, 30, 50 times during your meditation, you had to let go, let go, let go. This is actually very good for the mind, because what's causing these discontent feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others is the mind is holding on. The mind has craving, desire, attachment. In the unenlightened state, your mind is holding on to things, wanting things to be a certain way. And when you get things your way, you get pleasant feelings. You get happy, you get excited, you get elated when things go your way. But when you don't get things your way, your mind gets angry and sad and frustrated and agitated and annoyed, or feeling guilt or shame or fear or stress or anxiety or some other discontent feeling like loneliness or boredom or shyness or resentment. Oftentimes in the unenlightened state, with a lack of wisdom, an individual might blame their feelings on somebody else. You might think that you're getting angry because of what somebody else is doing. But in reality, it's your mind craving for things to be a certain way. There's a certain longing, a certain yearning, a certain expectation, a certain wanting that your mind wants things to be a certain way in the world. But they can't be that way permanently, because you're surrounded by a bunch of impermanence. Things are constantly changing. So as long as your mind has craving, and it's craving for things to permanently be one specific way, when you get things that way, you'll get happy, excited, elated, thrilled, euphoria. But when you don't get things your way, you're going to get sad and frustrated and agitated and annoyed. So essentially, the unenlightened mind is going up and down based on causes and conditions within your own mind. But if you don't understand this, then you're going to probably push people away in your life, thinking that that's going to solve the problem. You might perceive your painful feelings as coming from something external, so you push people away, or you might push a situation away, thinking that that's going to solve the problem. And if you push people away, or you push a situation away, you can see that it doesn't solve the problem, because it's only a matter of time before you become angry or agitated or annoyed again. If you solve your problem, if that was truly the problem, when you push people away out of your life, you would be peaceful and joyful from that point forward. Or the other thing you might do when you lack wisdom of what the real problem is, you might be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. And this is what every unenlightened mind is experiencing, that you might be bitter, harsh, and hostile towards people, aggressive or irritated towards people through your intentions, speech, and actions. And now you're experiencing difficulties there too, because it's almost like an animal growling or roaring or showing its teeth at this other human being. And now people might not feel comfortable being around you, and they might choose to leave out of your life. Or the third thing you might do when you think the problem is external is you might put your expectations on people. You might try to control people to do things your way, because the mind thinks if I can just get things my way, then everything will be perfect. So the mind will tend to put expectations on people and try to control them to do things your way. So all of these things aren't going to lead to your peace and your joy, because as long as you're pushing people away, or you're pushing a situation away, or you're being bitter, harsh, and hostile, or you're putting your expectations on people, the number of people you can spend time with becomes less and less and less and less. And now you might find yourself in a situation where you have very few people that you can spend time with, because when you're around various people, you have certain cravings and expectations, and those aren't being met. So therefore, you find it very frustrating to be around certain people. And this is what the unenlightened mind is experiencing. But by the time you train your mind by understanding what is the real cause of these feelings, and you apply the tools and techniques that the Buddha taught you to eradicate these pollutions, you can get to the peace and the joy of the enlightened mind, where the mind can be peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy permanently. You can experience the focus and concentration and clarity and deep memory, because when you have pollution in your mind is not going to perform optimally. This is why you might struggle with concentration or focus or clarity or memory. And you'll notice that with the pollution in your mind, your personal and professional relationships will be challenging for you. You might have broken relationships over and over and over and over again. But when you train your mind, your relationships can be at ease. You can be peaceful and joyful in these relationships. And as I mentioned, you can get to a point where you're not even in a bad mood anymore. But the first step is to understand that it's not the external things that are causing your mind to be discontent. It's what's going on within your own mind. So as long as an individual continues to believe that it's something external that is causing your mind to be discontent, you'll continue to stay stuck in this constant cycle of experiencing anger and sadness over and over and over again. But you can escape out of this. There's a path for you to learn and practice and develop your mind to escape out of this constant cycle of experiencing discontent feelings over and over. The teachings of the Buddha, they're not about believing things. You don't believe a bunch of things and then hope that something good happens when you die. Instead, you're learning teachings now in this life. You're examining them. You're investigating them. You're reflecting on them to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you're practicing them. You're integrating them into your life, and you're training your own mind so that then you can experience the peace and joy by uprooting these pollutions out of the mind. So there is no belief in the teachings of the Buddha. They're not a bunch of rites or rituals or ceremonies or worship. Even if you've been taught these things by people that are considering what they're teaching to be Buddhist, if you go back to the original source teachings of the Buddha and you see what he taught, he didn't teach any rites, rituals, ceremonies, or worship. He didn't teach you to believe anything. He taught you to learn and practice and develop wisdom and train your mind through understanding what's called the natural laws of existence. You're understanding these natural laws around you and how the world functions. Because when you live in a world that you don't understand, you'll struggle and you'll have difficulties. This is why you get angry and frustrated, because you don't understand the world that you live in. The mind lacks wisdom. But when you awaken to the wisdom, that's what it means when we say awaken to enlightenment, is you're cultivating wisdom. When you awaken to the wisdom of these natural laws, you're going to make wiser decisions that produce wholesome results in your life. But when you make unwise decisions because you lack wisdom about these natural laws, it's going to produce unwholesome results in your life. Oftentimes when people experience unwholesome results in their life, you might say it's good luck or bad luck, right? If you're experiencing wholesome things or unwholesome things, you might say it's good luck or bad luck. Or you might say it's your destiny or your fate. Or you might blame it on the people around you. But as long as you do this, essentially you've resigned yourself to believe that you're locked in and you can't change anything about your life. But when you understand that what you're experiencing in life is based on your own decisions, then it's a matter of cultivating wisdom, making different decisions, and experiencing different results. If there's anything that you don't particularly care for in your life and you don't like how it's going, all you need to do is cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and experience different results. But if it's good luck or bad luck, or it's destiny or fate, or it's other people around you that are causing the unwholesome things that you're experiencing, then you've resigned yourself to lock in and say, okay, I can't do anything about my life because it's good luck or bad luck, it's destiny or fate, or it's everybody else that's causing these things in my life. But when you come to understand true reality, that everything that you're experiencing is based on your decisions, this is the cause and effect, or the action and result. Like I mentioned, if there's anything you don't particularly care for in your life that you would rather not occur, you can just cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and experience different results. So the teachings of the Buddha, it's not about believe, and then hope something good happens when you die. It's about learning and practicing and developing your mind, cultivating wisdom, and making improved decisions in your life so that you can experience improved results. And this is where it doesn't rely on belief. The teachings of the Buddha is to train your mind. Okay, so what I'm going to do is open up to any questions that you guys might have related to the teachings of the Buddha. This is just a little bit to help you start to understand a bit about what he shares. You know, it's kind of challenging for somebody to come and start to hear that the discontent feelings that you experience is based on your own mind. People firmly believe that it's other people that's causing them to be angry. But if you would like to ask me questions, I can walk you through and I can show you exactly how your mind is experiencing these feelings based on its own pollutions, its own challenges within your own mind. And the teachings of the Buddha can be independently verified so that you can see the truth for yourself. Because as you're learning, you're independently verifying those. And as you're practicing them, you'll see situations where you were once angry and frustrated and agitated, that in those same situations, as you've been training your mind, you're no longer angry, you're no longer agitated, you're no longer frustrated. And this is how you know that what you're learning is the truth, because you've been independently verifying it along the way, but then also you see the improvements to the condition of your mind as you're entering into various situations where you would once be angry or agitated. You can see your mind is no longer experiencing that anymore. And that's because you've been training your mind in these teachings. And part of training your mind is to ask questions and to ask the teacher to help you to understand things. As I mentioned in various classes and courses and retreats, I do present certain topics and help you and guide you along the path. I have books and videos and podcasts, and you can get personal guidance and audiobooks, and all this stuff is available for you at no cost. So there's lots of resources to be able to help you to learn and practice this. But a certain portion of your practice is all about you asking questions and being interested to understand. I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't do. The teachings of the Buddha, they're not a bunch of rules and commandments. He's just helping you to understand what it took for him to get to this enlightened mental state. So if you'd like to ask questions, you're welcome to do so, because as I mentioned on Wednesday, it's just free-form question day. If you would like to ask questions here at the temple, what I'd like to ask is if you could use this microphone. There's plenty of microphones here in the white bowl. You can take one back to your seat with you, press the gray button. You'll see the lights come on. It just takes a second or two to engage. And then you just hold it up to your chin and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple. And the people online will be able to hear you as well. And for those of you guys online, if you would like to ask questions, you can put it into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comments section. I'll be able to see that and then be able to answer your question. And then anybody in Zoom, you can also electronically raise your hand and ask any and all questions that you like. And as you get these microphones, if you'd like to take it back to your seat, you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question and you can just share the microphone with the people around you. So is there anybody here online that has a question, something you would like to ask about the teachings of the Buddha? You can ask any and all things that you like, whether it's meditation or something you're seeing at a temple or something you grew up with that you're not quite sure about, or something you saw in a book somewhere. I can help answer any and all questions that you have related to the teachings of the Buddha. Or if you're having certain challenges or struggles in your life that you would like to get help with, you can share those kinds of things too and ask those kinds of questions, and I'll help you. Any questions you guys have? No questions? Okay, let's see if we have any online here. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. If you guys don't have any questions, I'm going to end class because this class is for you guys, right? It's for you guys to ask any and all questions that you like. So if you guys don't have any questions, we'll just end here. But let me just give you guys another opportunity. Anything you guys would like to ask? No? Okay. Oh, yes, ma'am. If you would like to get a microphone here, that way we'll be able to hear you. I'm sorry? The people online won't be able to hear you if you don't use a microphone. We have people joining us through our live stream and through Zoom as well.
Okay, so my question is how Buddhism treat moral standards here, like day-to-day life moral standards that other people set for us.
Okay, so the teachings of the Buddha isn't about creating a moral standard or rules or commandments or anything like this. He's helping you to understand the natural laws that you experience and that you're affected by regardless. So like, for example, the natural law of gravity, you're affected by this whether you realize it or not. And when you lack wisdom of the natural law of gravity, you'll have difficulties. You'll stumble, you'll fall. When we were 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, we had all kinds of difficulties with the natural law of gravity. We fell down, we broke open our knees, our elbows, we broke our toys. But slowly but surely, we gained wisdom of this natural law of gravity. So by the time we got to 10, 12, 14 years old, we didn't fall down as much. And we had, we were able to navigate the world easily because we're now able to climb a ladder, we're able to ride a bicycle, get on airplanes, because we fully awoke to the wisdom of the natural law of gravity. So we navigate this world more readily. We make wiser decisions. We tie our shoes tighter. We look at the surface of the street. We have all kinds of ways of making wise decisions, not because it's a rule or a standard or anybody told us what to do, but because of our wisdom of this natural law of gravity, we make wiser decisions. I typically point out to students that this cup of water behind me, I choose to put it behind me, not because anybody told me to do it or it's a standard or a rule, but I just know if I put it out here in front of me, because of the natural law of gravity, I just know with wisdom that I'll knock it over and it'll spill. So I put it behind me so that I don't have that issue. And again, not because anyone told me to do that, but it's just wisdom that you cultivate over time. So the teachings of the Buddha, they're not about rules or commandments. He's not explaining to you the way the world should be, and that if everybody follows these rules and commandments, that then the world will become peaceful. He's explaining to you the way the world is. And by understanding the way the world is, and by learning it, by reflecting on it to independently verify it and practice it, you can see the truth for yourself. So for example, he teaches about killing and stealing and sexual misconduct and lying and intoxicants. These are some of the things that are referred to as the 5 precepts. But they're not black and white. They aren't rules or commandments. He's helping you to see this cause and effect. That, for example, if you go out trying to kill other beings are going to try to harm you. And this is harm that's going to come back to you. This is your karma, or some people might refer to it as karma. The word karma is from the Sanskrit language, where the word karma is from the Pali language, and the Pali language is what the original source teachings of the Buddha are in. So people who study the original source teachings of the Buddha will tend to use the word karma rather than karma, which is from Sanskrit. What this is a natural law of cause and effect, or action and result. It's the results of your decisions. And any decisions you make wisely are going to produce wholesome results for you, or wholesome karma. And you make unwise decisions, it's going to produce unwholesome results, or unwholesome karma. If the word karma translated to just one English word, I would use that, but unfortunately, it doesn't, so you need to understand it as cause and effect, or action and result, the results of your decisions. It's not punishments and rewards. It's nothing mystical or magical. There's no being who's overseeing this and controlling it and deciding who gets what. It's a natural law that's functioning at all times that, for example, if we went out and tried to kill other beings, we're going to most likely get injured ourselves, or beat up, or murdered, or put in jail, or something like this. And the same thing if we steal. right? We're going to cause harm to others, so this harm comes to us. Same thing when we have sexual misconduct. If we go out and do the things that the Buddha talks about in terms of sexual misconduct, we experience harm. Like if we went outside of our relationship and started having sex with multiple people, then we could very well get beat up, we could get murdered, we could lose our reputation in the community, we could get sexually transmitted diseases. This is all harm that's coming back to us as a result of us causing harm through the unwise decisions that we make with a lack of wisdom of this natural law. Same thing when we lie or we take substances that cause heedlessness. These are just some of the basic teachings that sometimes people look at as rules, but I don't suggest that you consider them that way, but instead he's just explaining to you this natural law so that now you can navigate the world more readily. And when you do, your life is going to become more peaceful, because when you lack wisdom of the natural laws, you will struggle and have difficulties in the world, navigating the world and making decisions. But when you have the wisdom of these natural laws and you make wise decisions, your mind will be at ease, because you know that when you're making decisions, you're making a wise decision and it's only producing wholesome results in your life. So in the past and up to now, you haven't had wisdom of this natural law. So therefore, there's certain unwise decisions that you're making. While sometimes in the unenlightened state, people think that they're making all the best decisions in the world and everybody else is the problem. In reality, it's your own unwise decisions that's producing any particular unwholesome result. So when you gain wisdom of these natural laws and you start making wiser and wiser decisions and you extinguish all these unwholesome results that are coming back to you, eventually you get to the point where you've made enough wise decisions that you're only experiencing wholesome results. It's kind of like if you had a garden hose. What you've been doing throughout your life is shoving mud into this garden hose. So that's the reason why it spits mud, because you're putting mud into it. When you're making unwise decisions, you're going to get unwholesome results. This mud's going to come out of the garden hose. But if you train your mind, it's like hooking up the garden hose to a faucet, and you're opening up the faucet and you're now putting clean water into this garden hose. You're now putting wise decisions into your life. And as you do, this garden hose is going to spit mud for a little while, because you can't just snap your fingers and instantly practice all these teachings. You're going to need to practice these teachings gradually, slowly, but surely. But as you do, you're putting more and more wise decisions into your life. You're putting more clean water into the garden hose, and it's going to spit mud for a while. But over time, as you get more and more wise decisions into your life, eventually you're going to get only clean water coming out of the garden hose, because you've cleared out all the unwise decisions. You've cleared out all the mud. But there's a process here of training your mind to be able to experience that and be able to cultivate the wisdom that you need in order to train your own mind and make wise decisions in life. So that's what the Buddha is teaching you, is he's not telling you what you should or shouldn't do. He's just explaining to you this natural law, and then you decide for yourself whether you would like to learn that natural law and whether you'd like to practice it or not. And as you do, you'll see the improvement to the condition of your mind in your life. So essentially what he's doing is he's teaching you how to heal from what hurt you, so that you never need to hurt ever again. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't experience any painful feelings any longer. But the first step of that is understanding what's truly hurting you is inside your own mind. It's not the outside world that's causing all these problems. While there's obviously certain things that are unwise that are happening in the world, there's plenty of beings making unwise decisions. That's not what's causing your painful feelings. What's causing your painful feelings is what's going on inside your own mind. This is why you don't have to go out and train 8 billion people to do things your way. You just need to train your own mind. And if you can train your own mind, you can get to the peace and the joy. But you need the guidance and the wisdom and the resources to be able to help you do that. And that's what a temple, a teacher, somebody can do for you, is they can guide you, but each individual has to decide for themselves that they would like to get rid of this anger and sadness and frustration, that they're done with the bitterness and harshness and hostility in their life, and they would like to experience something different. And if you would like to experience something different, this better way of life, there's resources and guidance here to be able to help you experience that. You're welcome. Any other questions you guys might have? Yes, I see some over there. We've got plenty of mics, and we can share that one around as well.
Okay, so my question is that you talked about karma, but I've seen people in my life that are really, really good. They're genuinely kind, but they don't seem to be getting that good karma. And I've seen people who do questionable things and they're morally just questionable in general, but their life is going good because they do whatever it takes to get what they want. And so, like, I feel like the karma isn't quite applying there, or it's not quite consistent with what I'm seeing. So is there an explanation for that?
Yeah, the thing is that you're seeing a very minuscule part of individuals' lives. You're not involved in that person's life continuously throughout their life. So you're just seeing a small little window into what they're experiencing. And you're also seeing a very small window of the types of decisions that they're making. So while somebody might be very kind and polite with you, that doesn't mean that's the way that they're interacting with other people as well. They're making unwise decisions, otherwise they wouldn't be experiencing the things that they're experiencing. And while you might look at it and say, oh, they're very polite and kind, you don't necessarily understand the natural laws and what it means to function as an enlightened being and function as an individual who's fully awake to this wisdom. So you can see very small slivers of people's lives and think that it's going bad or think it's going good, but you're not with that person all the time. You don't see all the decisions that they make. And also with a lack of wisdom of the natural laws itself, you might look at somebody's life and think that they're so kind and polite, but that's because of a lack of wisdom, not necessarily understanding the natural laws, and you're maybe looking at them without that wisdom to be able to discern whether or not they're truly making wise decisions or not. So what you're seeing, if you're seeing people who are you think are fairly polite and kind and they're experiencing unwholesome results, the only reason why they're experiencing those unwholesome results is because they're making unwise decisions somewhere in their life. Otherwise, they wouldn't be experiencing those things. And another individual who you might be experiencing as being bitter and harsh or hostile or doing unwise things, you seeing them experiencing some wholesome aspect to their life, that's because somewhere in their life they're making certain wise decisions and they're experiencing that particular wholesome thing, but you're not seeing their entire life and all the other unwholesome things that they're experiencing. So this practice is all about you training your mind and be able to get to the peace and joy. And I can assure you that you can get to a point where you don't experience any unwholesome thing in your life, but with a lack of wisdom, you're not going to be able to do that. But it's important to focus on your own life and understand when you're seeing other people's lives, you're not seeing everything about their life because you're only seeing a small little sliver of their life at that point in time. Yeah, you're welcome.
So in enlightenment, you don't experience painful feelings. Do you experience the so-called positive feelings like excitement? Because, for example, if I'm very excited for a situation, when the situation stops, I will probably feel sad. So do you experience very positive feelings, or it's just serenity?
Yeah, so what you're describing here and what I would provide you as understanding is in the unenlightened state, you experience what's called a conditioned feeling, that you experience some feeling based on a condition. So for example, if it's sunny outside, you might be happy. But then when it rains, you'll be sad or you'll be frustrated. Or you might experience happiness as a conditioned feeling when your bank account balance is a certain amount. And then you're happy when it's maybe $5,000. But then when that bank account balance goes down, you'll feel sad or frustrated or agitated or annoyed or some other painful feeling. So these are what's called conditioned feelings. And in the unenlightened state, you'll experience those where you'll go up and down and up and down. The conditioned feelings of pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant is what's experienced in the unenlightened state. And even those happy feelings or excited feelings that you experience in the unenlightened state, they're ultimately displeasing because they're temporary, that they arise, they change, and they fade away. So even though you get happy when your bank account balance is a certain amount, because of that, because you've allowed the mind to get the conditioned pleasant feeling, that condition isn't permanent. Everything around you is impermanent. So as soon as you form a conditioned pleasant feeling of happiness, you're setting yourself up for painful feelings because that condition is impermanent. So if you get excited because it's sunny outside, Well, you're going to get painful feelings at some point because the sun isn't permanent. If you get excited or happy because you got a brand new job, well, at some point, you're not going to have that job anymore. You're going to get fired. You're going to get laid off. The company's going to go out of business. Something's going to happen where you don't have that job anymore. So now your mind's going to end up in the painful feelings. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you're no longer experiencing conditioned feelings. You're experiencing permanent mental states where your mind is just permanently happy, permanently experiencing joy. It's called unconditioned happiness or unconditioned joy, where in the unenlightened state, this condition has to be met, 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 and then you'll be happy if all these things are met. But the ability of all those things to be met is smaller and smaller and smaller, and they can't stay permanent. So therefore, your happiness and the emotions that you experience go up and down and up and down. In the enlightened mental state, all of that is gone. That you're experiencing happiness and joy unconditionally. So when you wake up in the morning, you're already happy. You're already joyful. If it's sunny outside, okay, you're happy, but you're not happy because of the sun. You're just happy. If it's raining outside, you're still happy because you're happy despite that it's raining, or no matter what your bank account balance is, or whether there's a war or not. Sometimes people associate the painful feelings with love. They think that they care about someone. They think that they love something. So therefore, they're experiencing this sadness when there's a war, for example, because they think they care. Or maybe if you've been in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend before, and now when you're in that relationship really close with your boyfriend or girlfriend, as you guys are together, you're happy. But then when you separate, you might feel angry or sad or some other emotion. And someone thinks that it might be love or because I care for this person so much. But it's not the love or the care that's causing these painful feelings, because love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. So by the time you get to enlightenment, your mind is permanently happy and your mind is permanently joyful. But when you think about happiness in the enlightened mental state, you shouldn't think about it as the conditional excitement, where in the unenlightened state, your mind just, so excited, but then you crash. And now you're sad and you're frustrated and you're agitated. So the enlightened mind is just joyful, it's pleasant, it's easy to smile, it's cheerful, it's bright, it's radiant. It's like the sun's always shining, right? But in the unenlightened state, you've got clouds that are in the way, blocking this sun. So what you're doing on your journey to enlightenment is getting rid of these clouds so that the sun can shine through and the mind can be bright and radiant and joyful all the time, which is what an enlightened being experiences. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Steve, you have some questions too?
I have another question.
Sure.
I think enlightenment sounds pretty amazing, and I wonder if you're enlightened and also how long it would take for someone like me, say with no kind of experience, to become enlightened.
Sure. So every person who enters to the path to enlightenment, they're coming at a different starting point because there's different levels of pollution in the mind. So there's not just one prescription where we could say it would take you 3 years or 5 years. Everybody's going to be a bit different because not only does it depend on the amount of pollution that you have in your mind, but it also depends on your level of dedication and diligence and how you apply these teachings to your life. Because some people might meditate any particular type of schedule or frequency, and somebody else might do something completely different. So because the level of pollution is different and the dedication and diligence is different for each person, it's different. But it is going to be a multiple year pursuit. It's not 1 month, it's not 1 year, it's going to be multiple years. It took the Buddha 6 years to get to enlightenment. So it's going to take you some time, but you do this gradually, slowly, but surely. And when you ultimately are in the enlightened mental state, it's a permanent mental state. So this is like the last challenge of all challenges. Once you overcome this particular challenge in your life is at ease. Living in the unenlightened state, it's very difficult. It's very hard because you're going to experience sorrow and grief and pain and displeasure. And these broken relationships and challenges over and over and over again, difficulties and struggles and problems in your life. But by the time you get to enlightenment, all of that stuff is gone. You've gradually cultivated wisdom that your life is at ease at that point. So everybody's going to be a little bit different. I wouldn't be able to say that, even an average, that it would take an average amount of time, because there's some people who will apply effort this entire life and they'll never get to enlightenment in this life. And they might fall short of that. But at least the work that they're doing in this life will lead to an improved rebirth in their next life. And then there's people who will get to enlightenment in this life. And, you can do that in a matter of years, but you do this gradually, slowly, but surely. In terms of the question about whether I am enlightened or not, an enlightened being isn't going to say yes to that, because as soon as you say yes, you know that somebody's not enlightened, because this is the ego, this is the arrogance, the pride. And a person who's gotten to enlightenment, they no longer have ego or arrogance or pride, so they're not going to say yes to that question. They're also not going to say no, because if they said no, they would be lying, right? So an individual who's enlightened, they know that their mind is enlightened, but they don't go around and tell people and brag and be boastful and things like this. So some other questions that you might ask to a person that you're curious if they're enlightened or not is you might ask them, when is the last time you got angry? Or, is it possible to eliminate frustration? Do you experience frustration? Or is it possible to eliminate the ego? Or things like this. These kinds of questions a person would be able to answer. And then if you know that an enlightened being doesn't experience anger and sadness and frustration and things like this, when you hear the answers to these kinds of questions, you'll be able to know whether this person is enlightened. Because if somebody says, no, it's not possible to eliminate sadness, then you know that they're not enlightened. Or if they say, no, it's not possible to eliminate the ego, then you know that they're not enlightened. So in my opinion, what an enlightened being would do when they're confronted with this kind of question is they would be more interested in helping other people to understand what enlightenment is, rather than talking about their own attainment of that mental state. Because in the unenlightened state, you don't really have the wisdom to discern whether someone is enlightened or isn't enlightened. So just saying yes or no doesn't actually help you. What really would help you is to understand what enlightenment is, and then that way you'll be able to learn more and more about what an enlightened being is and be able to figure this out on your own. A couple little keys are, like I mentioned, if somebody doesn't experience anger, sadness, frustration, and all those other discontent feelings, then you know they're not enlightened. You'll notice an enlightened being has focus, concentration, clarity, deep memory. They'll be able to speak very clear and very concise, very precise about the teachings, because they would have fully cultivated the wisdom and the knowledge to be able to get to enlightenment. So if you see someone's mind is very muddled or very unclear, then you know their mind is still having these pollutions and they're not yet enlightened. So if you'd like to ask any of those questions, you're welcome to ask those. You can ask any questions you like. It's just that this particular question, a person typically won't answer it yes or no if they're experiencing enlightenment.
I would like to ask, how do you get to enlightenment? Do you just meditate and kind of read about the scriptures? Or is there anything else that you would do?
Okay, this is actually a perfect question, because anybody who's enlightened would know how to get to enlightenment, right? So the way to get to enlightenment is the Eightfold Path. This is a core central teaching. There's 8 individual factors that you need to learn and understand. There is a certain amount of reading that you need to do in order to take in the teachings. There's a certain amount of sitting in classes like this to be able to learn and understand what it is the teacher is sharing with you. And then there's a certain amount of integrating this work into your life. So yes, there is meditation, but you wouldn't be able to just meditate your way to enlightenment. Not that somebody could, but let's just say somebody meditated for 23 hours a day. And then they went outside and they were bitter, harsh, and hostile with people through their intentions, their speech, and their actions. They're not going to be able to experience enlightenment, because as long as they're putting that bitterness and harshness out in the world, you can see that they lack the wisdom of the natural law, but then also that bitterness and hostility is going to be coming back to them. So they're not going to be able to experience enlightenment. So yes, you do need to meditate, but it's not only meditation as well. You need to learn about the natural law through intellectual understanding. And the way that you get to that intellectual understanding is, yes, there's some reading that would be helpful. There's sitting in classes like this. There's watching videos and podcasts and things like that. that are based on the original source teachings of the Buddha. And that's the intellectual learning part of it. But then you move this into reflection, where you start independently verifying the teachings of whether they're true or they're false. So for example, when I share with you that everything around you is impermanent, it's constantly changing, you can independently verify that. You can look around the world and see that everything you see is impermanent. It's constantly changing, whether it's the weather, whether it's your physical body, whether it's your relationships, your bank account, whether it's your job or occupation. You can see all these things are constantly changing. So you do the intellectual learning, but then you do the reflection where you're independently verifying the teachings. And then you start practicing them on a day-to-day basis, which practicing meditation is part of that. But then there's also speaking to people in polite, kind, friendly, respectful ways. But the Buddha provides you guidance on the natural laws of what it means to speak in a polite, kind, friendly, respectful way. Because oftentimes you might think you have the very best intentions. You might think you have the very best speech. But if you haven't learned the natural law of Gamma around your intentions, your speech, and your actions, you're most likely doing things that are harmful and you don't even realize it because you just lack wisdom. So when you cultivate wisdom intellectually through learning, and then when you reflect on it to independently verify it, and then you practice it, you'll be able to see the truth for yourself. So for example, let me just back up to something here. I'll use a visual aid to be able to help you to see something, what I'm talking about here. So here, this is a teaching from the Buddha. This is his own words around right speech. So oftentimes people might think that they're speaking in the very best ways, but the Buddha is helping you to see the natural law of Gamma, of cause and effect, or action and result. This first part is from the Eightfold Path, where he's teaching you to eliminate lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. These aren't rules. They're not commandments. He's just helping you to see that when you do these things, you're causing harm in the world. So this harm is coming back to you. And of course, we've all lied at different times in our life, and we can independently verify that. So you can do the intellectual learning here where you see that it's unwise to lie, but then you can reflect on it and see that whenever you lied, it produced unwholesome results for you. And now you move it into your practice where you train your mind to only speak the truth, and you only talk and speak things that are true. And then that way your mind can be at ease. And this is just one aspect of speaking wisely and using right communication. And then slander is like gossip or damaging someone's reputation. If you've done that kind of thing, then you know that people end up gossiping about you. Or if you slander and gossip people, they might want to fight you or injure you. Some people might want to murder you, right? People have gotten murdered based in slander. Same thing with harsh speech. This is like your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. If you're harsh and aggressive and hostile and bitter, which you've all been in the past, we've all done this, you can see that it produces unwholesome results. This is the natural law of Gamma. And then what frivolous speech is this is like idle chatter, just chit chat without any real beneficial purpose, or, just yada, 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 yada. If you've ever done that, or people around you have ever done that, you can see that you're experienced, this lack of influence, that people aren't interested in listening to you or understanding what it is that you have to say. So the Buddha is helping you to see this natural law that when you avoid doing these things, you're going to experience improved relationships. And then he goes deeper into what's called the 5 factors of well-spoken speech, where he says, speaking at the proper time. This is based on not interrupting people. This is making sure that your mind is not angry or bitter or harsh, because if you speak during that time, just bitterness and hostility is going to come out, and you're going to damage your relationships. And then also speaking at the proper time is making sure that the other person's mind, it's the right time for them to speak. Because if they're angry and bitter and harsh or hostile or agitated, it's not the proper time to speak to that person. So speaking at the proper time is vitally important. And then again, speaking the truth, speaking gently. This is your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. Then speaking beneficially, making sure there's purposeful speech, and then speaking with a mind of loving kindness. So you can do the intellectual learning on something like this, and you can understand it intellectually, and then you can reflect on it, and you can see in situations where you didn't speak using these 5 factors, it produced unwholesome results for you. That in your relationships, when you didn't speak at the right time, what you said wasn't true, when you didn't speak gently, when you weren't speaking beneficially, and you didn't speak with a mind of loving kindness, you spoke with a mind of inner hate, it produced unwholesome results. And you can see the truth that the Buddha is speaking the truth, because not only can you look at it and independently verify it that way, but you can look at it when conversations did go well for you, because you've been involved in conversations that have gone well, and you can look at that and you can see, wow, you and or the other person were both practicing these 5 factors. You didn't know what they were at that time, but you and that other person were practicing these 5 factors. And now, even though then you weren't practicing them consciously because you didn't know what they were, when you've done the intellectual learning, when you've done the reflection and you can see that this is true, then you start integrating it into your life more and more, where you start practicing this. And now when you're speaking at the proper time, what you say is true, it's gentle, it's beneficial, it's with a mind of loving kindness, more and more as you're doing that in all your relationships, more and more you'll see improvements. But if you've been harsh and bitter with your mom, for example, or your brothers or your sisters, and you start practicing this today, they're not going to instantly change, right? It might take a year or 2 for you to be practicing this, because you've got mud in your garden hose, but you've got to put more and more water into your garden hose. So the practice part is, yes, you're doing meditations to be able to train your mind, but you need to gradually move these types of teachings into your life, where more and more in your relationships, you're starting to function wisely through these natural laws. And now you'll see your relationships will improve and the condition of your mind will improve as well. You're welcome. Any other questions you guys have? Looks like we have one online here. Rachel, if you'd like to go ahead, let me find my mouse. There it is. Go ahead.
Good morning, David. I have 2 situations that kind of bother me every day. One is every morning, that is around 6:30, because I live close to a street. So around 6:30, there is I think he or she is a cleaner. He or she would be using a hoover to hoover the street, which makes a big sound, and sometimes it wakes me up from my dream. So I find it's quite annoying. Another situation is quite similar. That is around 5 p.m. in the afternoon. Some street vendors would start selling things on the street, and some of them would use a loudspeaker. They recorded a message saying like, "This is watermelon. How much is it?" And the loudspeaker starts to speak consistently without any stop. So when that situation happens, I find it's really difficult for me to stay in my apartment, to stay in my room. And I have filed complaints to the government many times. And sometimes they tell me, okay, it's solved, but actually it happens again and again. Maybe it happens with different vendors. So these are the 2 daily situations and quite bother me. So do you have any tip for me?
Sure. So there's 2 aspects to this. The first aspect is to understand why your mind is getting annoyed. Okay. The reason why the mind's getting annoyed, which is, I think you know, because you've been studying with me for a little while, is the mind's craving. It's longing, it's yearning. You're craving sleep, perhaps, or you're craving for no sound, right? There's a certain longing, yearning there. So understanding what's causing the annoyment in the mind is the mind craving things to be a certain way. And you can't control 8 billion people to do things a certain way in the world. So understanding what's causing the annoyment is really important, because you're not going to be able to experience any kind of permanent situation in your apartment. But then the second part of this is to understand wise decision making, that yes, I need to sleep. I need to get some sleep. And this is where, if this isn't working out for you, you need to make different decisions and potentially move to another place. If this is a consistent, ongoing thing and it's not going to be changing, then you know that this is the situation. So as long as you're holding on to this particular apartment and you're not willing to let it go and move somewhere else, you're going to keep experiencing the same thing. So there's understanding what's causing the mind to be annoyed and frustrated, which is craving, desire, attachment. And then there's wise decision making, about making wise decisions about where to live and where to reside in the world. And it sounds like this particular apartment may not be the best place for you to reside to be able to get some sleep.
Moving to another place is an option, but I find it's quite the cost is higher because this community is quite good. I think maybe the only thing, I'm not sure whether it is the only thing that is not good is the noise. So I don't want to move to another place.
Right. So the mind holding on to the apartment, the mind holding on to the money. Now, because of holding on to that, you're going to experience this discontentedness. And you need to decide if you've tried to encourage this situation to change, then as long as you're holding on to the apartment, as long as you're holding on to the money, holding on to this and craving and wanting these things to be a certain way, you're just going to keep experiencing annoyance over and over and over again. So you're either going to need to let go of craving for the environment to have a certain sound or lack thereof, or you're going to need to be willing to let go of the apartment and the money. You have to decide for yourself which one is it, or which 2 or 3 is it that you're going to choose to let go of. You need to let go of all cravings, desires, attachments. But if I was living in a place that had continuous noise and it was continually waking me up, I would move to a different place, because sleep is important and it's something you need. But you're going to need to eliminate your craving for your environment to be a certain way, because you would like to make wise decisions to have an environment that's conducive for you to live in, all the while realizing that you're not going to have any kind of permanence. So for example, where I live, every once in a while I hear children, yelling and screaming in the houses next to me. There's a child who has a mental challenge, and she will tend to yell and scream and be upset. And, even, 11 o'clock at night, sometimes it occurs, but it's only for 10 minutes. It's only once a week. No big deal. But there's no way for me to have any kind of permanence in that environment, that this is going to happen. Whereas if my mind craved for there to be a particular environment, then I would be annoyed and frustrated when this is occurring. But because I understand that this is impermanent, that she's going to be yell or scream for 5 or 10 minutes, but then it's going to be done and over with, no big deal. I can, not be annoyed by this. So you're going to need to decide, what is it that you let go of? Do you let go of wanting there to be a particular sound or lack thereof in your apartment? Or are you going to let go of the money in the apartment and move to a different location? And that's a choice for you to make.
Thank you. So currently for me, the solution is to accept the situation, I think. Yeah.
That's what you'll have to decide. You've already tried to, improve this through talking with the government and things like that, and nothing's changed. So therefore, it's just like everything else in the world. You can't change other beings. You can't change other people. And let's just say at some point you were able to change these people from stopping to announce about the watermelons. Well, just wait a week or two. There's going to be somebody else now announcing about apples, or there's going to be a garbage truck, or there's going to be loud music, or there's going to be something else. So your mind is disturbed because it has a craving for things to sound a certain way in your apartment. And that's whereas if that's what you truly are interested in experiencing, you're going to need to either move, or you're going to need to let go of this craving to wanting things to be a certain way, or otherwise you're going to just experience discontentedness over and over and over again. And part of getting to enlightenment is to find, where are you going to reside in this world? Where is it in this world that you're going to find this peace and joy? By the time you get to enlightenment, you can be peaceful and joyful anywhere in the world. But in your journey to enlightenment, you're going to need to find, where am I going to work? Where am I going to live? What kind of friends am I going to cultivate? Am I going to have a life partner or not? Am I going to have children or not? You need to decide these things in your journey to enlightenment. And this apartment may or may not be the place that you're going to ultimately live throughout the remaining time of your life. You are going to most likely need to let this go at some point during your life. Ultimately, even by the time you die, if you're in this apartment for the rest of your life, you're going to need to let it go. So you're going to need to mentally let it go so that you don't experience painful feelings, because the more you hold on to things, the more painful it's going to feel, and you're going to experience those painful feelings.
Thank you. It's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Steve, did you have a question?
Thank you. So as we commence this process of more awareness or more reflection, it seems from my experience that initially it can increase agitation. Like I can look back on my life and now become more aware of the poor decisions I've made or the poor actions I've made and people I've hurt, or more importantly, or not equally important, how I've hurt myself. And that can lead to, beating yourself up, and then even on a day-to-day basis, you become more aware of, oh my God, unwholesome thought, unwholesome action, I did that. Yeah. So it seems the initial trigger, at least for me, is wanting to beat myself up. Oh, I'm such a bad person, But then I realize I've got to, the best way to do this is to get back on the path and try and take some positive action. So in terms of like the value of that beating yourself up part, is that of any value at all? Or does something like self-forgiveness, because I'm not enlightened, I'm going to make mistakes, does self-forgiveness come into it a bit, saying, I did it again, I'll do better next?
Yeah, understanding that you're a work in progress is very important, right? Because prior to getting on the path to enlightenment, we live in delusion. We live in confusion, misunderstanding. We oftentimes think that what we're doing is so great and so wonderful, and everybody else is the problem. That's typically what the ego does, is it makes you think that everyone else is the problem. This anger is warranted and it's justifiable because everybody else is doing things wrong, and I am angry because of them. When you first come to the path and you learn the teachings through the Four Noble Truths and so forth, and you realize and you can independently verify that your mind is causing your own discontent feelings, it shatters your reality. And you get to the point where, oh my goodness, you look back over your life and you see all these unwise things that you've done. And you need to be able to get to the point where you understand that that was from a lack of wisdom. No need to beat yourself up for wisdom that you didn't have in the last 60 years. I think you're about 60 years old or a little bit more. There's no reason to beat yourself up for the wisdom that you did not have, because now you have that wisdom, and that's helpful. That's wonderful. That's great that you've now cultivated that wisdom. And looking back over your life, you didn't have that wisdom, but now you do. And that's the important thing, is that now in the present moment, you have the wisdom. You understand you're starting to understand what's wise and unwise. And now you're choosing to make only wise decisions. This is what the Buddha refers to as moral wrongdoing and moral concern. What moral wrongdoing is knowing what's wise and unwise. And you learn this through the path, through the natural law. You can see what's wise and unwise. And we didn't have this in the past. That's why we did unwise things, because we just lacked wisdom. So the first part of this is understanding moral wrongdoing and knowing what's wise and unwise, or wholesome and unwholesome. Then the second part is moral concern, which is what it sounds like is kicking in, which is you're concerned to not do unwise things anymore. And you're concerned about not causing harm to others, because you're starting to look back over your life and see the harm that you caused and the harm that it led to, and you're not interested in doing that anymore. So be sure that as you're practicing this moral concern, that you don't let it go to one side where you start feeling guilty or shameful, or you start beating yourself up. But you're also not interested in that going to the other side where you're indifferent and you could care less about how you treat other people. So you would like to come to the middle where you have this concern where, hey, I'm concerned that I'm not interested in doing harm to other people, but you realize you're not yet enlightened. You're a work in progress, and you're going to have missteps. You're going to have mistakes. And whenever you have a misstep or a mistake, rather than beat yourself up, immediately look at it and figure out, what wisdom can I cultivate here to make sure that I don't do this again, and that it leads to wholesome results in the future. And that's where, when you need help from your teacher, you reach out and you say, hey, this is a particular thing that happened. I feel like I made some unwise decisions, but I'm not really sure. Here's what occurred. Can you help me see where I could have made wiser decisions? And then that's where we help you. Or sometimes students, before they even make a decision, they're having certain impactful decisions, and they'll come and seek advice through personal guidance. They'll say, hey, I'm about to make these kinds of decisions. What kinds of things do you think I should be thinking about? And then we share with you thoughts. we don't make decisions for you. You make your own decisions. But this is part of developing your moral wrongdoing, to know what's wise and unwise, and part of your moral concern that, hey, I'm not interested in causing harm to others. So just don't allow that to go to the one side, which is what it sounds like it's doing, where you're feeling maybe guilty or shameful or something like that, or beating yourself up. But then also the other side, you're not interested in being there either, where you're indifferent. So come to the middle, where you have concern and then realize you're a work in progress and you're cultivating wisdom, and you'll continue to do that for the rest of your life, even when you're enlightened. It's wise to never convince yourself that you are enlightened, and just continue to cultivate wisdom, because by the time you get to enlightenment, you will have full wisdom of the natural law of karma, but you won't have full wisdom of everything. Like maybe if you're interested in flying a helicopter, right? You don't know how to do that. But by the time you get to enlightenment, maybe that's something you're interested in doing. You'd like to go learn how to fly a helicopter, right? Go learn how to fly a helicopter. So you'd like to just cultivate wisdom for the rest of your life. And no matter what missteps you're making, use it as an opportunity to cultivate wisdom, and see it as a benefit. Like, wow, thank goodness this just occurred, because now I can cultivate wisdom to ensure that doesn't occur again. So this is the way that you can approach it, rather than beat yourself up, is look at it as an opportunity to cultivate wisdom. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I'm not seeing any. Oh, you have a question? Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
My question is, in Buddhism, what's the meaning of life and how to live a meaningful life?
So the Buddha, from everything that I've seen, he didn't answer this question of what the meaning of life is directly, because I don't think it was necessarily posed to him. But if you look at the totality of his teachings and everything that he did share, you can see like the purpose behind life would be to be able to get to this enlightened mental state. Because as long as you're in the unenlightened mental state, you're going to keep experiencing sorrow, pain, displeasure, grief, misery, despair. Sure, there's certain happiness and excitement here and there, but it's only a matter of time before you're irritated or annoyed or frustrated at some point. So if you dedicate a certain portion of your day to learning and practicing, like I suggest people to just read about 10, 15, 20 minutes a day. And then I teach people to do meditation. And if you'd like to come to the temple or join through live stream, you can gradually learn these teachings. So if you gradually commit a little bit of your time and effort and energy towards developing your mind, this would be a wonderful way of improving your life. Whereas if you're not doing that inner growth, that inner work, that inner development, then your life, you're not doing anything to improve it. You're just going to keep experiencing the same struggles over and over. And oftentimes when we face struggles in the unenlightened state, an individual will run away from those. And this is just ensuring that it's going to happen again, because you haven't cultivated the wisdom that you need to overcome those struggles and difficulties. But when you turn around and you walk towards the struggle and difficulty, or whatever challenge you're having, now you have the opportunity to cultivate wisdom and make sure that that doesn't happen again. So while the Buddha, I never saw anywhere that he's talked about the purpose of life or anything like that, you can see that he's guiding people to be able to get to enlightenment, because getting to enlightenment would be the very best thing that could ever be experienced. Like if I had a button and I said, press this button and you will stay angry and frustrated and agitated for the rest of your life, and press this button and you'll get to peace and joy for the rest of your life, which button would you press? Probably this one, right? The peace and the joy. Well, because it's not a button that you can press and there's actual real effort and work that you need to put behind it, this is why some people don't want to do the work. They're kind of stuck in their own thinking. They're not willing to look internally and see that, yeah, I am struggling in this world. I am having challenges. For somebody in the unenlightened state, they typically aren't interested in doing that inner work. So that's why I really admire people who are willing to do the work and understand the teachings, because it's actually really hard to not do the work. Sometimes people think how hard it is to do the work to get into enlightenment. Well, it's actually a lot harder to not do the work, because when you're not doing the work, you're going to keep experiencing the anger and the sadness and the frustration over and over and over again. So by applying some work and effort to actually improve the condition of your mind, you're getting to more and more peace. So the purpose of life, in my opinion, is that there really is no purpose. There's nothing here that's available. It's just basically you're just existing, and we work and we have hobbies and we have friends. These are things that just occupy our life. But then ultimately what you would like to get to is you'd like to get to the point where you're gradually and consistently developing your mind and getting to enlightenment. And that's what's going to improve your life. And by the time you get to enlightenment, it's like, wow, I can do this. This is fun. This is enjoyable. That unenlightened state, wow, there's like so much misery sometimes in that life. But when you get out of that and you get into the enlightened mental state, it's like, wow, this is actually quite enjoyable. This is quite fun. Because in the unenlightened state, we tend to try to look at the positive sides of life. And that's wonderful. That's what you should do. But it's only a matter of time before you experience grief and sadness and sorrow. But by the time you get to the enlightened mental state, you're seeing the positive side of life, but you also see the challenges and difficulties in the world, but you're no longer affected by those things. And not because you don't care, but because your mind doesn't crave for the world to be a certain way. Because by the time you get to enlightenment, you understand how the world is. And the world is functioning exactly the way the Buddha taught that it functions. So in my opinion, this would be the purpose of life, is to get to enlightenment so you can enjoy life in that positive mental state and that pleasantness that is experienced in the enlightened mental state. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, let me just check online if we have any questions here. I'm not seeing anything else here. No more questions. Oh, you have a question? Yes, ma'am.
I have a hypothesis about the fate things. Maybe the fate is a series of decisions that you make from yourself, and then it comes to some consequences, and maybe I call that could be some similar to fate. And so I guess that how does it works? It may be all about yourself, and it's the inner decisions or something. So there I heard some stories about pray, and someone pray in the temple, and then their wish come true. So how does this work?
So you can't pray your way to an improved life, because what you experience in life is based on your decisions. While someone might go to a temple or a church or a synagogue and they might pray, and then they go outside and something wonderful happens for them, their mind is associating the prayer as what caused that particular thing. But everything that you experience in life is based on the decisions that you make. For example, your hairstyle. This is your decision. Your clothing, this is your decision. To come to Thailand, this is your decision. To come to Chiang Mai, to sit here at this temple, to ask that question, to pick up that microphone. Everything's your decision. The job you work at, what you spend money on, where you live, everything is a decision that you're making. Whereas if somebody thought that there was some being that was giving them punishments or giving them rewards, then yeah, they might resign themselves to think that I need to ask this being for something to occur in my life. But in reality, you can see the truth that every single thing you experience is a result of your decisions. And this is to come to understand the wisdom of the natural law of karma. And without that understanding, then you wouldn't be able to improve your life. Because what people think about fate usually is that, okay, this is my destiny or this is my fate, meaning my life is locked in. That means that everything that's going to happen from the time of birth until the time of death, it's already been pre-planned and pre-programmed. And if this is the case, if somebody was to resign themselves to that type of thinking, then that means that you can't change anything about your life because it's already pre-planned, it's pre-programmed. But if you understand that what you experience is a result of your decisions, that's where I share that if there's anything that you don't particularly care for in your life, you just make different decisions and experience different results. Like Rachel, when she was asking the question online about her apartment, well, if she doesn't like that sound, she just needs to make different decisions and she'll experience different results. So if we thought it was destiny or fate or good luck or bad luck, then we might just resign ourselves to experience whatever it is that we're experiencing. But you can move to this higher consciousness and this higher awareness where you understand that there's this natural law of cause and effect, or action and result. And now just cultivate wisdom about that natural law, slowly but surely make different decisions and experience different results in your life. And this is very empowering, because now, like I mentioned, if there's anything you don't particularly care for, you make different decisions and you experience different results in your life.
Okay, thank you. And I have another question. That I think that love is you feel about something that is a bunch of feelings that is mixed up, and I think that is quite difficult, because when you love someone or something, that is not just the positive feelings. Sometimes it's bittersweet. So I can't figure out what the love actually is. Love or hate. That's that is a pair of that is a pair of, I can't describe that as a feeling. So I'm wondering what actually the love is.
Yeah, this is one of the challenges in the unenlightened state, is we misunderstand love. We don't understand what love is. So there's something called craving, desire, attachment that is masquerading as love. What craving, desire, attachment is the mental longing and strong eagerness, wanting things to be a certain way. And what somebody might do is they might meet somebody, they might be physically attracted to them, maybe they're mentally attracted to them, maybe they appreciate their intelligence, maybe they appreciate their financial stability or whatever it is, and somebody starts to get familiar with this person. And now you start building a relationship with this person, and now when they're doing everything you want them to do, you might say, I love you. I've fallen in love with you. In reality, what it is that you have certain cravings, desires, attachments, and you want things to be a certain way, and this person is that way. And maybe that happens within a few weeks or a few months, and now you say, I love you. But then as time goes on, they're not doing things the way you want them to do it anymore. They've changed. Things have changed because of impermanence. And now the mind gets angry. It gets sad. It gets frustrated. It gets agitated. And now you say, I don't love you anymore. This isn't love. This is expectations. This is wants. And now an individual, you can only say, I love you if you do things my way. And if you do things my way, I will say, I love you. And this is actually not love. It's craving, desire, attachment, masquerading as love. It's selfishness. That, hey, if you do things my way, I'll say, I love you. But if you don't do things my way, I'm not going to say I love you anymore. I'm going to go away from you. So you're not actually falling in love and out of love with people. You're falling into craving, desire, attachment, wants, and expectations, and you're falling out of that, right? What true love is, and by the way, this over here, we might refer to it as conditional love, even though there's no such thing as conditional love. But what we're saying is, if you meet all these conditions, I will say I love you. But when you stop meeting these conditions, I will say I don't love you anymore. So there's no such thing as conditional love, or we might call that conditional love. Over here, what true love is unconditional love, where you have a genuine interest in seeing this being be well. I love you as you are. Over here, we might say, I love you, therefore I want you to be with me because you make me happy. This is attachment. This is craving, desire, wants, expectations. I can only be happy if you're with me. And because you make me happy, I want you to be with me. But when you're away from me, I feel sad. I feel like I miss you. I feel miserable. That's not the actual love that's causing that. That's the attachment. That's the longing, the yearning, craving for this being to be permanent in your life, when in reality, they're not permanent. They are impermanent. Over here with true love, it's I love you, therefore I would like to see you be well. I would like to see you be well. It's not about me. It's about having a mental state of having a genuine interest in seeing you be well. Over here, you're having feelings when you think that it's love, because the feelings go up and down and up and down. If you actually get to unconditional love, it's permanent, that you can love somebody as they are. So every single one of you, every single person that I ever meet, I love everybody because I have a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. I don't want you to be any particular way. I don't have any expectations of you. I'm not trying to control you. I don't want anything from you. I just love you as you are. And I'm here to support you. I'm here to encourage you. I'm here to provide you guidance and suggestions and advice as you ask questions. But if you're not interested in learning anything, then okay, I won't teach you, right? Like we started out at the beginning. So when you have love for somebody, you just love them as they are. And this is very challenging in the unenlightened state because somebody will make decisions and you'll disagree with their decisions. And you might say, oh, I don't love that person. I hate that person because they're making decisions differently than you. Where when you realize impermanence, that of course everybody's making decisions differently than you because they've had different experiences in life. And not everybody can make decisions the same way as you. So when you separate the decisions that people make from the person themselves, you can disagree with the decisions somebody makes while still loving the person. So I imagine if we took a survey, none of us agree with 100% of the things our parents did when we grew up. None of us, I don't think, agree with 100% of everything our parents did. There are certain things we disagree with what they did. But if we can only love people who we agree with 100% of the time, then we can't love everybody. We can only love people who do things our way. And there's nobody other than ourselves who are going to do things our way 100% of the time. Because we can meet a boyfriend or girlfriend who will do things our way for a couple of months, but then they'll change. So if we look at somebody's decisions and we say, oh, that person's doing something that I disagree with, so I can't like them anymore, I can't love them anymore, then you can only love one person, which is yourself. And even that's kind of challenging for a lot of people to love themselves because they have negative self-talk in this inner dialogue in their mind that's challenging them. So you would like to get to the point where you understand what true love is unconditional love, where you don't put your expectations on people, you don't try to control people, and you understand that people's decisions are going to be different than yours. So that way you can love the person while disagreeing with their decisions. So this is where, like, I just had a situation at my son's school where there was a kid that was hitting my son regularly, like 7, 8, 9 times. He was kind of bullying him. I still love that little boy. The little boy who was bullying my son, I love him. And I actually saw him at the graduation last week. And I talked to him and I smiled and he had stopped bullying my son for about a week or two. And I said, hey, I just would like to tell you, I think you make a really wise decision. It's really smart not to hit people. Not only are you not hitting my son, but you're not hitting other people too. This is going to be really good for your life. He's a 5th grader, right? So I'm talking to him very nicely. And he's like, oh, thank you so much. And I was like, yeah, you've made some really wise decisions here. So I didn't hate him. I wasn't upset with him. I wasn't angry at him. But this was some unwise decisions that he was making that needed to change and improve. But just because he did things differently than what I would have done, I don't hate him. I just love him as a person. And then in the process, I talked with the principal. I reached out to some other teachers and we provided this boy the support that he needed in order to understand that it's unwise to hit other people. And when you can do this with love, you can make wiser decisions. So that when I went in and talked with the principal, I was calm, I was peaceful, I was joyful, I was just providing guidance and suggestions rather than being fierce and angry and hostile and bitter. That wouldn't have produced the same results. So by learning and training your mind to be calm and peaceful, you can handle situations like this and you can love all beings. So love is having a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, active goodwill, without putting your expectations on others. Understanding that you will disagree with what your parents do from time to time. You'll disagree with what your brothers and sisters do from time to time. But you can still love them as a person and understand that, of course, they're making different decisions because they've had different experiences than you in life. So they're not all going to make decisions in the same way as you. And that's okay. But with one's own ego, the mind will think what I do is right and what everyone else does is wrong. And if they don't do it my way, it's wrong, right? But if you get away from that thinking, if you get away from that ego and just realize like, yeah, there's like 500 wise decisions. In this one particular situation, there could be 500 different wise decisions, right? There's not just one wise decision. And each individual person needs to have the freedom to make those decisions on their own, free of us trying to put our expectations or trying to control someone to do something a certain way. And that's what it means to love somebody, is to just love them as they are while being supportive and encouraging as they would like help from you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Be
You're
helpful.
welcome. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. Just check one more time online, see if we have anything coming in. All right, I don't see anything coming in. I don't see anything else here. So what I'll do then is just thank all of you guys for coming to the temple and being interested in learning and practicing the teachings of the Buddha. If you'd like to get away from these painful feelings and understanding more about love and how to have healthy and conducive relationships, there's help here for you. And it's all available at no cost. You can get these books by downloading them from our website at no cost. You can take them and go print them if you like on your own. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for our printing cost. You can get them on Amazon. We have videos and podcasts and online classes, and you can even get personal guidance where you come talk to me privately, either here in Chiang Mai or anywhere else in the world. You can even meet with me on Zoom privately when you're in your home country. So if you're willing to put in the effort and dedication to learning and practicing, there's help here for you. Our website is the central hub for all of this stuff, and you can also reach out to me by private message. So you can ask questions in our Facebook group, in classes, by sending private messages or scheduling personal guidance. And then if you're independently reading and coming to classes and learning and growing, this is what's going to result in improvement to the condition of your mind in your life. So thank you all for coming, and perhaps we'll see you guys in a future class. We have classes coming up on Saturday and Sunday. We have a game night this Friday if you guys would like to come at 6 p.m. to the temple. We have games where our students will come and we'll play board games and have fun and hang out. People usually bring food and drinks and stuff like this, and it's like almost like a party. It's like a social event where we just kind of hang out here at the temple and have fun. And then on Saturday we have the Pali Canon and English Study Group at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. On Sunday we have the group learning program, where this Sunday I'm going to be teaching chapter 9, which is titled, What is Karma and How Does It Affect Me? I'm going to teach you about this natural law. You can come at 9 a.m. to the temple or join online through the live stream. And then I also live stream at 9 p.m. from home as well. And then next week on Monday, I'm going to be starting a course called Experiencing the Jhanas in the 4 Stages of Enlightenment. It's a 5-day course from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., which again is available at no cost. You can take it here, you can join online live, or you can watch the recordings because it's all recorded. This is a course that I only teach twice a year, and it's helping you to understand the preliminary phases that the mind goes through before it gets to the first stage of enlightenment. And then I'm going to be teaching you the 4 stages of enlightenment as well. So this is a course that students like to oftentimes take as they've developed a foundation and they're learning and growing. There's no prerequisites for that course. You can just come right into the course and learn from the very beginning if you like. So like I mentioned, perhaps I'll see you guys in one of these future classes. As you need help, feel free to reach out, and maybe we'll see you in a future class. Have a lovely rest of your day. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.